Hey, Shannon, how are you?
Hey Jen, I'm good. Happy Monday.
It is a happy Monday. We put this on the calendar what feels like a while back. We just had a conversation. We have 9 million mutual friends, and we're like, we should talk about purpose-driven business models. And so I'm excited that today, like, we're actually here and to kick off a Monday. I don't know, just seems like a fun way to start a week.
Yeah, it's a fun way to start a week, and it's always fun to talk about the bigger purpose of businesses and not just the money, although I am a proponent of making money,
Same. We need to be.
bills to pay, and countries to travel to.
Yes. Yes. We absolutely do. Do you want to start off sharing just a little bit about your business, and then I'll do the same. So that way, since we're, knowing people may or may not know who we are, what we're talking about.
Absolutely. So my business is called Joyful Business Revolution. I'm a marketing strategist, specifically my love language is email marketing, and a messaging strategist. And I have helped every type of business you could imagine, including a cattle farmer, get their email, messaging, and marketing work to convert to clients or customers.
I love that. A cattle farmer. That's awesome. That is, yeah, yeah, yeah. That I think that says it all, right? Awesome. And I'm Jen Grace, and I'm the founder of Publisher Purpose. And we are a hybrid publisher focusing on storytelling and for nonfiction and memoir authors specifically. So thought leaders who are really trying to amplify their purpose in some meaningful way. And so I spend many of my days diving deep into business models of authors that we work with, whether they have an established business model or they don't, they're just starting out. A lot of times they kind of need that early guidance. And because it's just kind of part of my background, it just shows up in what we do in publishing books, even though on the surface, publishing books and digging to someone's business model don't usually intersect, but in our case it does. So that's partly why you and I were chatting. And especially with a business where it's Joyful Business Revolution and Publisher Purpose, like clearly we're both already in the thick of all the things that are purpose driven regarding business models. So I'm excited. I don't know where we want to start because this is completely off the cuff. We have not prepped in any way other than the description that we put out into the universe. So is there anybody that you would like to start?
Yeah, I think it'd be fun to really start. I always like when I'm brought in, so I've been in business 13 years. When I'm brought in to speak about business growth, and through us, that's through the lens of joy, because if it ain't joyful, we ain't doing that shit. Let's be real. Humans aren't going to do shit that's joyful for a sustained periods of time. But one of the things I always like to say first around this topic, and I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on it, is my purpose when I left teaching, I used to be an eighth grade teacher, was to replace my income. That was my purpose. And I had bills to pay. I had zero, I went from not being paid very much as a teacher to zero. And then I needed to have a couple years to get my business started and learn all the things that I have to learn. And so one of the things I always like to say is when I'm speaking on this topic of purpose-driven business models, I don't want anyone to feel bad if their purpose right in front of them right now is to put their kids through college and to pay their bills, right? And so I just want to say that because sometimes newer people or people who have had a shift in business, yes, Debbie, good. I see Debbie in the comments, or people who have been in business longer, our purpose can shift because our priorities can shift.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to start with that because sometimes people say, well, my purpose is just to get my bills paid. And that's fine too. It's necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually love that that's how you started this conversation because if I look back, I became an entrepreneur officially starting my business in 2008. But I had a corporate job, if you will, that I didn't leave until the fall of 2009. And at that time, the sole purpose was to get the hell out of that company because it was so toxic. Like that was the sole purpose. And also I just kind of had that recognition of wow, I'm not really meant to work for other people. Like it's just not really in my DNA. And so at the time that was the purpose. And, now however many years later that is, that purpose has changed and morphed dramatically over time. So what is yours? Let's just maybe start with sharing our purposes. What's your purpose?
Yeah. Well, up until 3 weeks ago, I'd say my purpose was to I mean, my purpose is always to help people create really fun marketing that feels as good to write it or video it or audio record it or whatever as it does to receive it. And then that does the job of sales. Like that's always my purpose. My bigger purpose, right, up until 3 weeks ago was really to bring in some people under our new program. We have a program. It's not new, but the way that we've modeled it, we're calling it Joy Tank, and it's like the nice version of Shark Tank.
Nice. That's awesome.
And we're able to do that because we have, we take a percentage of all of our sales and we put it towards scholarshiping, partial scholarshiping, or at least offsetting the first few months to give people that ramp up that we often need when we're in the midst of a change or it just ain't working anymore. Yeah. So that was my purpose, and it's still my purpose, but really to, keep it real, I flew home really fast a few weeks ago to help my mom with some health challenges. I've just come back Friday, and I'm going back on next Monday. So my purpose in this moment, and I'm so grateful, I have this beautiful business I can run as little or as much as needed when these kind of crises come up, if you will.
Yeah, and I think that leads into like the purpose-driven business models, right? Because if I think about like my bigger purpose is to help more people be seen and more lives transformed as a result of those powerful stories being seen. And that's just kind of, I could say so much more about that. But if I think about my business model, I have a team of 8 and then additional, lots of different vendors and contractors and folks like that. And when I think about how I designed this business to fit around my own schedule. So I have had Publisher Purpose for 10 years, and my son is 16. And so when his other mom and I divorced, we decided that when he's with me, I'm with him. Like my priority is him. And so my ability in my business model to change the schedule of my days alone has been like the grounding anchor of the purpose of how I've done everything. Because if I have to pick him up from school at 2:00, then I'm not going back to work after that. Like that is just how it's been. Like now it's a little bit different because he's going to be 17 and doesn't require as much from me. However, I did set the groundwork for that's kind of how our relationship is. And so we do spend hours every day outside, doing some kind of like activity or whatever. And I can't even imagine a world in which living where I had to be like in a 9-to-5 job or an 8-to-4 job, or like that would completely and utterly, I think, crush everything about my personality and just how I show up in the world.
Yeah. Do you think when your son is out of the nest, you'll adopt a different hours, or do you love what you've settled into these past 10 years?
That is a great question, because I am already struggling with like the soon to be empty nester, because he'll be a high school senior next year. And I'm like, even though I think he'll still be living here for much longer, it's still not going to be me required to bring him to school and leaving the house at 6:45 in the morning, or leaving the house at 2:00 to go pick him up. So that is a really good question. I don't have a full answer for yet. I think if anything, what I'll probably do is try to keep my days light on Mondays and Fridays and just really hustle on that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But I don't really know. It's yet to be seen, but I'm kind of curious to see where it goes.
Yeah. There's nothing like a 4-day weekend.
Yeah. I already kind of do that, if I'm being honest, where during this time of the year, it's Mondays off, actually because I ski and I like to go skiing alone on Mondays. And now we're out of ski season. But, and then once he's on summer break, I take Fridays off. So I'm kind of already doing that. So it's a rare occasion that I'm even doing a live on a Monday, because I'm usually, I'm like, I'll write, I'll work on books and things like that. So I'm not completely not working. I'm just not actively taking calls.
Yeah, I love that. I think I like, so yeah, your purpose was to be home with, or be with your son when you were with your son, which I love. And I think we could tie this back to anyone who's wanting to have feel more purposeful in how they run their business, right? In their business model is intention. Like you really have to have intention around it, right? And that intention, I think if you can get really clear, like I'm not working Fridays, whatever that means to you, right? I'm not I take, so one of the things I want to talk about here is I take the whole last week of each month off as CEO week. It's literally blocked in my calendar. And what am I doing during that time? Most of the time, I might be staring at the clouds, waiting for a new idea. But it's like that think time, or I'm working on a new lead magnet, or it's just something for my business. And I've done that for years. And we try and get our clients to do that as well, even if it's 2 days a month. That's just yours. It's not that you're off, but you're just working on your business to move it forward, right? So that's been a how do I say this? A task in honoring the intention. And because it's real easy to have it in your calendar and then say, oh, but I can meet with oh, I can squeeze that in.
Yep. Yeah. It's the same thing with writing a book, right? Where we can have all the best of intentions and put it on the calendar to say, I'm going to write during this window of time, or I'm going to block off this week or this month or whatever. But something always comes in. So unless there's some kind of external accountability, I find that that's where things a little bit fall off the rails. So, I love that you're doing CEO week. I have certain days in the month that I kind of do that. I don't have a whole week, but I love the idea of doing it because every now and then I'll have I was actually supposed to travel in April, and at the last minute was like, I don't think I want to, I don't think this is the best use of my time, but I hadn't released all of the blocks in my calendar. So I had like the whole third week of April that was wide open, and I didn't even know what to do with myself because I'm like, oh my God, nobody needs me. I have no calls. Like there's not even a team call on the calendar. And it was glorious because I was able to get so much done by just being intentional with that time rather than having any number of things like being in my inbox, for example, eat up that time, which is so relatable for people.
Absolutely. So this was like another idea I wanted to ask you about. When we set out to do a purpose-driven business model, or you have a new person come to you, right? How do you help them get their brain wrapped around it? And by new, I don't necessarily mean new in business, but they want to do it a different way. Because I know, like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. You can, but that dog has to like change their habits.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
So do you help people with this, and how do you help people get like the kickstart to get their business model set up?
It's such a good question because I find that we have kind of like two types of authors that work with us. It's the person who already has a well-established business. Things are kind of like humming along. They have a team, they have support, they have resources, and their model already makes sense and, makes sense for them. And they have some kind of intentionality set behind it. But then there's a lot of authors where the book is the opening of the door to something new for them, whether they're leaving a corporate job, they're leaving some kind of job that wasn't fulfilling, didn't bring them joy, whatever the case may be. And in those cases, I think because, and this is just my own perception, I'm really curious what you think. I think when someone's coming from a place where they have previously been paid by others and they're not, eating what they kill, that phrase, I don't know that profit is the first thing on any of their minds. And so I think they're already kind of coming into this because they've been burned out by some environment that just didn't feel fulfilling. So they just know that they want to do something different than how it's been. But I don't know, and because I think about capitalism versus altruism versus, like all these kind of intersections. And if we think about someone who has been burned out, they're not going to be like, you know what I want to do? I want to create a corporate mothership that resembles what I just came from, right? So they're kind of coming into it differently. So I think that they're much more flexible in what that looks like. And it might be just trying to figure out, how are you going to make money? Like, what is your revenue model? Like, not even thinking about a business model, just like, how are you going to make money? Because the book itself, in our case, it's not the thing that's going to bring a ton of money in. It's all the stuff that orbits the book that brings it in. So I'm kind of curious if you kind of observe something similar.
Yeah, I think when people come to me, they've either left corporate, like you said, and they don't know what they want, but they're definitely very clear on what they don't want.
Correct.
It's almost like when I teach people marketing, right, and their messaging. We don't do any here at Joyful Business Revolution. We don't do any pain point marketing, but often you have to start with the pain points. That's how our brain thinks. And then you flip it to the positive at the end. And it's often that way with the people that were we're helping. So one of the very first things we have all of our clients do, because most of them are coming to get consulting and business growth coaching through the lens of joy, right? That's our promise, is like, we're going to lighten your load and increase your revenue. Somehow we're going to get this working for you. Yeah. We have them do an activity called a joyful work calendar, where it's literally a spreadsheet of Sunday through Saturday, and every hour of the day is on there, and we have them color code it. Like, this is when I want to be sleeping, because please, let's not forget, we are human beings. Actually need sleep, right? I want to have, for me, mine is like, I want to have a hot breakfast every single morning at the table. That's a 1 hour slot, right? So really tying into their values. Is it you want to pick your kid up from school? And so we get all the life things in first, and then we say, okay, with the time that's left and the days that you actually want to work and the times you want to work, what would be best, you know, back to your point of either a revenue model, because sometimes that means the offer needs to shift, right? Mm-hmm. When they look at this like on their screen, yeah. Or the business model needs to shift so that they can work within the parameters of what their new desire is. And it's a really concrete tool. And I use this tool as well. Whenever I feel like, wow, my days are getting long again, I stretch the boundaries, I go back and look at the joyful work calendar.
Yeah, I love to even have it in a calendar like that. And I love that Hottie's chiming in of, and hey, Hottie, finding joy and peace in our workday is such a gift. It really is a gift, because we are such in a culture of grind and hustle. And I have just never subscribed to any of that. It has never felt good to me. And even when I was saying before that job that I left in 2009, it was such a toxic work environment in every sense of the word. But even the work hours themselves, like, that wasn't even really the toxic part. It was everything else that orbited it. But like, I don't know if you're into human design in any way, but you know, I'm a projector in human design, and there's something to be said about managing your energy. And when I started to like really dive deep into how we show up in the world and how our energy is being used and what our energy is being used on, I realized that it's not about how many hours in the day you're actually working. It's how focused you are in the time during that day that you're working. So I love that you have this calendar. I actually think I'm like, ooh, I should do that for myself. Especially going back to your other question of like, will your schedule shift once he graduates? Probably. Maybe that's a great way to start. So thank you for that good tip. I feel like it's something that anybody can apply.
Yeah, I'm going to send it to you so you can don't start from scratch.
Even better. Yeah, appreciate that.
You can look at it and do it yourself.
Yeah.
There was something else here, and I think it's this values piece. And, you know, part of my values, I call them lifestyle values. So yes, we have values of integrity, joy, honesty. Those are super important. But we've been teaching for years our clients to look at their highest lifestyle values. And those lifestyle values will shift, right? When you become an empty nester, your lifestyle value will shift. And so we get a lot of people, they're in transition because humans also are in transition most of the time. And so we look at, you know, once we get their joyful work day, like their ideal week down, then we look at their lifestyle values. And I take them through this exercise where we actually say, okay, let's make a list of all the things you always find the money for, organic food, taking your pet to the vet, childcare, whatever. And then let's also make a list of all the things you always find the time for. Taking a bath on Friday, like a bubble bath, reading a fiction book. And then we pull those across and we look at groupings. And so what I'm going to look at my lifestyle values, because I have them posted. We have people get to their top 3, and then we design their business model or redesign their business model and their offers to be those. So like my number 1 is health and wellness. That's my number 1 value, which is why I don't start my workday till 11, because I'm having a hot breakfast. I'm cooking it. I'm going to do meditation and journaling and like spiritual communing with myself in the morning and get a workout in of some sort, right? My number 2 value is personal development and creativity and learning, which is why Wednesday I'm flying to Colorado to go to a art retreat, which is going to be super fun. And then my 3rd value is teaching, speaking, and leading, which is why I'm here with you today, despite the craziness that's happened. And so when I think we can understand our lifestyle values and how they change and how they show up, we never have this grief or this shame or this I should be doing this or I wish I was doing that. But it also takes a lot of intention, right? Like staying present and building that model. And I also just wanted to ask you, how many times do we have to say no to things to keep within the parameters of what we want as a purpose-driven business model?
Yeah. And I love that you have that emphasis on the lifestyle, the life values, because I think that there's so many consultants and programs and books and things like that that talk about business values, but adding the lifestyle that you're trying to lead. This is a conversation my partner and I have all of the time because she's also an entrepreneur, and we talk about like, what do we want our life to look like? I don't want to be hustling around the clock and working 80 hours and employing 75 people like that. Neither does she. Like that does not fly. So yeah, I like that you're kind of framing it that way, because there is that intersection that can help. To me, it's like the North Star, right? Where we think about, if you have a goal, whether it's personal goal, professional goal, business goal, when you have that goal, it's easy to know what the yeses are and what the nos are. Because if I say, like, I'll just use an example. In the past, I ran a chamber of commerce, and my goal was for us to be chamber of the year. That was it was a blind focus, like everything. It's like, if it did not match, the answer was no. And I felt so free because I was always like, no, it doesn't fit. It's not going to help us get there. So the answer is no. Because obviously to be able to establish something, to be a chamber of the year across the country, you have to have a lot of other very values heavy things in place in order to be recognized in such a way. And that was always just such kind of like a freeing thing, versus like now to me it's more energetic, where it's like, if this doesn't feel right, it's no. And I don't have to have like a logical justification for it. I don't have to have an intellectual justification. It's just, it doesn't feel right. It's the same thing for bringing in new people that we work with, either new team members, new clients, any of that. Like if it just, something isn't sitting right with me in the conversation, it's just a no. And I'm not rude about it at all. I'm obviously like, I don't think we're the right fit. Here's someone who might be. Yes. And I think that to me, that is how I'm able to say no, is because I'm just checking in with my body and seeing what it's telling me. Because for way too long, I completely ignored it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I should have jotted this down. It was something you just said that I wanted to ask you a question about. Maybe it'll come back. This is menopause brain, by the way.
Yeah, I'm in the perimenopause brain phase, and I get it, and there's no judgment. I wish more people talked about it, honestly.
Well, let's talk about it.
Yeah. Well, we have Amy here who said, when our values are part of our business, we have less guilt and conflict. Completely agree.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think we all live in a world where we need less guilt and conflict. Like, seriously, there's enough to be upset about. We all have to put our blinders on and just like, do the thing. Oh, the question was, did you get Chamber of the Year?
We did, yes. Yeah.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah, it's one of those things. And like now I've gotten so far out of like, it's hard to describe, but like I was so rigid, so laser focused, so type A plus, winning all the accolades, all of the things. And then something shifted about almost 5 years ago where I'm like, no, I don't need to constantly be going and going and going, because I can still be really effective in a much, much more energetic way that works for me. And it also isn't depleting everybody around me, because I was so out of alignment. And again, going back to the human design thing, like I was so far out of alignment. And then once I started to realize it, it's like, oh yeah, I can say no to things, and I can say, and the best part is then you can say yes to the things that really matter. I think that's the more rewarding side of it.
We seem like we have a similar path here. Do you consider yourself an introvert?
I think I'm an ambivert, because it really depends on the setting.
Yeah. Okay. So, and do you mind telling me how old you are? I have a reason for asking.
I will be 44 in June.
Okay, cool. So I just turned 48. And I would say too that around 41, 42, I had the same thing. I was just like, screw this. I am not operating at this pace anymore. raised like super type A. I was also raised an extrovert, which by the way, I'm not. Spoiler alert. And I couldn't figure out why in my business model, I would be so excited to have like a 3-day event and be ready for it and be teaching, right? Number 3 of my value, teaching, training, and speaking. And then I'd be like flat on my ass for the next 2 weeks, like trying to like get my energy back up.
Yeah.
So I am a manifesting generator in human design.
Does not surprise me.
Yes. And my edge, right, the thing I've had to work on, which I have successfully done, thank God, the past 4 years, is one, I claimed introvert, which just solved 90% of the problems. But the other thing is I'm like a sacral yes, just like you're saying, like I know when it's a yes, I know it's a no. I don't always know why, and it doesn't matter anymore. Like if it's just a no or a yes, it's a no or a yes, and I go on. But I've learned that I've realigned my business with actually the physical seasons of the year, which has been interesting to do, right? Because if you think about right now, we are in spring. And so spring energy is about planting seeds. That's why I'm here with you. We're planting seeds, right? It's about tilling up the beds. It's weeding the beds. Now, I'm talking if you're in the northern hemisphere, of course. Spring is about cleaning up, pruning, like those kinds of things. And so I literally logged into Asana today and I'm like, I ain't doing half this shit right now. And I just moved it out of right? And so really realigning my business and trying to run the business, run the marketing, and align my energy with what the seasons do naturally has helped me so much without this crazy Shannon's gonna just ramp up.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that is so interesting. I feel like there's so many components of like woo to all of this, right? That I feel like when you're first starting out a business, this was me anyway, where I felt like I had to conform. I felt like I had to kind of do the things the way that everyone else was doing them. And then it took me, mine was 39. So you were saying like 40, 41. It was 39 where I was like, no, this does not work for me anymore. But what's interesting is that I go by 7 52-day cycles. And there's like different astrology reasons for it. There's a whole, I won't go down that can of worms. So like right now I'm in my 7th cycle because my birthday's in the end of June. And so it's very, very similar to kind of like the seasonality to it, because like right now mine's in integration and completion. That is the 7th cycle. And everyone has these same 7 cycles. It just is applicable. Your cycle starts on the day of your birth. So everyone's cycles are, at different times. So it's similar to kind of what you're saying, because I kind of look at these like when I'm like, oh, I'm feeling like really creative and inspired, which is why I have a new book that's coming out in February. I started writing it in January and I'm still working on it, but the first draft was complete by April because I had some creative juices that were flowing. And I know that when they're flowing, I can't stop them. That I shouldn't stop them is what I should say. And it works. Otherwise, if I'm like, oh, now it's October and I feel like, oh, I got to go write that book. I got to and it feels like a weight and it doesn't feel aligned, it becomes problematic. So I feel like trying to find and understand like when we're feeling inspired to do something is such a game changer. And I say this for writing all the time, but it applies to every other area of life too. It's like if you're not feeling inspired to do something and it's not bringing you joy and you're not feeling fulfilled from a purpose standpoint, there's no motivation to keep doing it. And it's like you're just getting stuck in that same circular just wheel that everyone gets stuck in.
Yeah. Where can I find information on these 7 52-day cycles?
That is a great question because I have my own system that I've cobbled together over the last 15 years, but I will see if I can find something that is helpful to share with you. And if anybody else is like listening to this conversation and wants it, feel free to just message me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to share. It is literally a cobbled together situation that I've created myself, but it's based on something. It's based on some other something that already exists. I didn't just come up with it on my own.
I love that. I love it so much. Yeah. Speaking of joy, I just want to talk about a book that I wrote, and I don't even know if I have this book. I have a book. It's 2 years old. So I've written 2 books, and the first book I took out of print because I was sick of talking about it, and people kept calling me, and it was like how screwed up the education system is and why I left. Finally, I was like, this is not joyful to talk about anymore.
Yeah.
So I wrote a new book, and I agree completely what you're saying is, as a writer, an author, I had to figure out like the best time for me to write is I wake up at 5, my brain is like still halfway asleep. I grab a cup of coffee and I write for 2 hours, 5 to 7. My book was done in like 3 weeks, this new book. So the book is called Practical Joy, Simple Tools to Cultivate More Joy Every Day. And it is like part book, part color book, part workbook. And it's all this stuff about joy and putting joy as a choice, not as a byproduct, which is putting joy as a choice that I now speak on. And it's the foundation of Joyful Business Revolution.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll drop the link to that as well in the chat. But I like this layering of these 7 52-day cycles and the seasonal stuff. Like, this is a robust way to just go about living your most joyful life ever.
Yeah. And it's like finding what works to you over time, right? Because it's not like when I first started my business back in 2008, I had any clue what, you kind of stumble into things that work for you over time. And like this cycle situation I've been using since 2014, I think it was. And so, yeah, and it works for me. And just like the human design, I'm like 5 years into that journey. And the more you just kind of take what works and leave the rest. I think that's kind of the thing, because for someone watching this, it might be like, oh, I'm not interested in anything on this kind of woo-woo side of things. I want to go pursue some kind of mini MBA program or some other type of, learning that's much more kind of like traditional in that sense. And that's great too, right? Like if that's what works for you, it's really kind of navigating and finding our purpose and our joy throughout all of this chaos. Because when you are starting something new, when you're starting a business and you're launching a book or you're launching a product or whatever the case may be, there's a lot of people giving you a lot of information that is often conflicting. And you have to kind of have some kind of system where you can parse out what works for me and just leave the rest behind.
Absolutely. And I love that you said that, because the same as you're saying for a book, we teach that on the marketing side. If you listen to everything everyone said about email is dead, email's alive, social's dead, you will just burn yourself out. So you have to find a path that's best for you. And I love that.
Yeah. And aligns with your goals, aligns with how you show up. That's what we really have a emphasis on, is looking at your personal, professional, business goals and what actually feels good for you. Because if I tell you need to be on video and it terrifies you and it puts you in such a place of not feeling aligned, that's going to be a really bad strategy. Versus if you love writing and you're really creative, great, let's find something that works there. So yeah, there's always a way to fit how you show up organically into the business world. It's not often talked about enough of what purpose-driven business can look like, because we're in such a binary of what just the business world looks like. And it's no, it doesn't have to be that way. And I'm finding more and more people, and just us having this conversation today, I think it just spreads a little more awareness of yeah, you can do things your way. It doesn't have to be some textbook way that someone told you it has to be.
Yeah. I see your book back there on the shelf. When I see you in a few weeks in New York City, you want to do a book exchange? I'll give you mine and you give me yours.
I'd be delighted. Yes. All right. I gotta make myself a note. And Hadi, I know, is on here, so I need to reach out to her to see if maybe we can hang out while I'm in the city. So.
Is she local?
Yes. Well, yes-ish. New York.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Okay.
But yes, yeah. Oh, I'm so excited to meet you in person too. I feel like it's always just a little added extra something when you can actually meet somebody in the flesh, because it doesn't, we're such a global virtual world at this point.
Absolutely. Well, this has been super fun. One of the things I want to, so I'll share my book link for anyone listening or catching the replay. The other thing is I have a 25 assessment. It's called your Business Expansion Scorecard. And it takes you through the 8 pillars of designing or realigning a purpose-driven business model. You'll see, you get to score yourself, right? So you get to see on a scale of 1 to 20 where you fall on these 20 questions. And then at the end, you add up your score and it gives you some next steps for, if you feel like it's your marketing that's off, or your messaging, or your lifestyle values. You haven't really defined those. So I'm going to drop that in the chat as well. And what do you have today, Jen?
I always have a lot of things. I will put a link to my book in the chat, my Publish Your Purpose book, a step-by-step guide to write, publish, and grow your big idea, specifically for the first part, which is about goal setting and vision and purpose and alignment and impact and all of those things. And then the second and third part go into writing and publishing. So even if you don't really, even if writing isn't necessarily writing a book is necessarily the vision, I think the first part of the book really kind of sets the stage. And I am repurposing a lot of that content in my new book, which I do not have a landing page set up for yet, but it will be called Promote Your Purpose. And it is all about business models that tie into establishing yourself as an author and a thought leader. So that will be coming out in February.
Will you please put me on some list to help you book launch that? Because that is so aligned. I want to be like a collaborator for you.
Oh my God, I will be delighted to. Yes, I'm making myself a note. Yeah, I have like a kind of a random list of people going right now. You would think that, as someone who helps other authors do this in their marketing, that I would have a landing page set up for this conversation, but I do not. So it is what it is, because I'm trying to just navigate. Like right now I'm in like creation mode of making edits and not the marketing aspect, but the marketing, that cycle will pop in and I will be game on mode, but it's just not today.
Not today. Nope. All right. Well, this was super fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for joining me. And hopefully we'll do some other collaboration in the future.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, have a great week.
Okay.
Bye.
Adios.